So building on the last video where we saw the Zen Master story, I'd like to introduce you to some ideas from one of my own supervisors, Clare Norman, who has written a couple of great books that I'd recommend. One in particular, and I'm going to share my screen and we'll take a look at her book, Transformational Coaching. And I just want to read a small piece from the introduction and then talk a little bit about her concept. And she's talking about actually how we can unlearn and use or move away from our own traditional way of thinking to start casting ideas around alternative options. And she, in her introduction, I'll just read this passage. In the film The Empire Strikes Back, Yoda, one of the greatest Jedi masters from a galaxy far, far away, is Luke Skywalker's teacher. And he's got many words of wisdom for the young man as Luke learns the ways of the Force. And the pair are in a swamp with Luke learning to use the Force that's all around him to make stones levitate. But then the robot R2-D2 alerts Luke that his spacecraft is sinking into the mud. Luke thinks it's impossible to retrieve his ship, but Yoda suggests that he's too certain of this and it's his mindset that will get in his way. Luke must unlearn what he has learnt, and Yoda wants Luke to question what he's been taught, to untangle himself from societal programming. Now, she mentions that coaches don't need to learn to use the Force, but what we might need to do is to unlearn what's the ingrained mindset and beliefs that get in the way of our being the best coach and mentor we possibly could. And this book that she's written, Transformational Coaching, looks at this from several perspectives. And what she looks at is looking at the mindsets and questioning mindsets we've learned from our parents, mindsets we learned when we were at school, mindsets we've learned from our peers and from our work colleagues and our managers, mindsets we've learned from our coach and mentor training, and mindsets we've learned from our experience of being a coach and a mentor. And by questioning this, what we begin to do is unlearn what we've learned, unlearn what we've taken for granted. And so I think there's some lessons that we can learn from this when we start to prepare for how we might want to go into coaching, into supervision rather, with a clear and open mind, not inhibited by our past experiences, not inhibited about the mindsets that are trying to keep us safe, the neural pathways that have been created over the years that may have served us well when we first started having these thoughts, when we first started learning, when we were first showed how to do things, but questioning whether they now serve us as well as they might. So the concept of learning to unlearn is one of keeping an open mind, of actually trying to think alternatively and using maybe our supervisor and contracting with our supervisor to be able to push and stretch us to question what we think we know is true. I'm going to stop sharing now and just think about how we might be able to do that, how we might prepare to take that thought to our supervisor as one of the things that we take to supervision and ask them to push us and stretch us and see what emerges. Thanks for listening, and we'll look at the next section of how we use this to prepare for supervision.